Here now is Lisa Bell and Candace Campos with Florida Foodie. Sponsored by Light Orlando, delivering hope together.
Hello and welcome back to Florida Foodie. I'm Candace Campos.
And I'm Lisa Bell. Today's guest is arguably one of Florida's most well-known chefs. He is the author of several cookbooks and has been recognized numerous times by the James Beard Foundation. Recently, he reopened his namesake restaurant in a new location in Central Florida.
Yeah, so we are so happy to be joined now with Chef Norman Van Aken, which you said it's not, don't elaborate, it's just Americanized, Van Aken.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
You are originally from Illinois,
Yes.
but you've been in Florida for a long time.
Absolutely, yeah. My mom and dad would bring me and my sisters down to Miami Beach when we were toddlers, and I just got the bug for tropical weather as an infant. And when I turned 19, I had a friend who had moved to Key West, and I was done with winter. And I said to some buddies, "Where's our friend again?" They said, "Key West." I said, "Anybody want to go to Key West?" And they said, "Yeah, let's go." I said, "When do you want to go?" They said, "Let's go tonight." So we just went to Key West. This was 1971, and in 73 I moved to Key West and with my girlfriend, and she began working in restaurants, I began working in restaurants, and so we've had this relationship with Florida our entire lives.
Yeah,
Except for that first 19 years.
But it's one of those things, you don't have to shovel the heat, but you do have to shovel the snow, right? That's what everyone always says when they're complaining about the heat here in Florida.
Yes. Yeah, well, we still have family up there, and all you have to do is go back there in January, and you're freshly reminded of how painful winter can be.
Yeah.
So you fell in love with the warm weather at an early age. When did you fall in love with cooking and food?
Yeah. Well, I know I fell in love with cooking as a child, but I had no understanding, inkling that being a chef was a road for a person like me. No one spoke about that growing up in Illinois, northern Illinois, almost Wisconsin. You know, people in that area might have been school teachers if they were smart, but most of us, you know, bricklayers and cops, and my mom was a waitress, and she loved the business. When she married my father, she stopped that because she had raised the kids. But when they split up, not too many years later, she went back into the restaurant business. But still, it was like, it was somewhere out there. That was not my life. I did, though, after my brief sojourn into college, and knew that I was going to be not draftable again, or draftable, I was like, well, okay, what now? So I began to get the jobs in the area. Those were factory jobs. So I worked in a glass factory, shoveling glass onto a conveyor belt. I worked as a hot tar roofer, hot like this outside, but up on a roof. Yeah. I worked as a carny. I went from town to town with a buddy, and we were just kids, you know, we were just like...
Trying things out.
Trying things out, and just like living that kind
Not
of
gonna
like,
do
whatever.
that, not gonna do that.
Well, you know, it's funny you should say that, because I was working the carnival one night, we were breaking the carny down, and I worked the Ferris wheel, and they asked me if I wouldn't mind climbing up on the wheel to move one of the little chairs out of the way so a truck could pull through. I was like, no sweat. I was a gymnast in high school and monkeyed up there to do that. Unfortunately, the Ferris wheel wasn't properly grounded for electricity, and I became totally stuck under that wheel until I kicked myself off, and one of the carny workers saved my life by catching me from hitting the asphalt.
Oh.
So I took that off the jobs to keep list. So I went, and there was one of these newspapers that you would go and get and look for jobs. That was the whole reason. Or you could maybe buy a motor or a lawnmower or something like that kind of a newspaper. And I took it back to the place that we rented, and I sat on the kitchen table and began looking through the want ads, and there was this want ad that said, "Short order cook needed, no experience necessary."
Bingo.
I circled that thing, and I went, what the heck? So I went there the next morning, I had long hair, tied about long as yours, and I tied it up and stuck it behind my high school sweater I dug out of a drawer, and I filled out the application sitting there at the diner's stool, and they looked at it, and they looked at me, and they said, "Okay, you can come tomorrow and start. You start at 6:30 a.m." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is real." And I got home Then I realized 6:30, that means I got to be up at like 5. Got back in the car and went to a hardware store and bought an alarm clock.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So that was the very humble beginnings of my culinary career. And you asked how long before I got the bug, and in truth, it took me years, because I didn't know. I mean, this was before the Food Network. This was before the James Beard Foundation. Mm-hmm. This was not a life where people thought, well, being a chef would be great. My girlfriend's father would dig that. No, not really. That was the first glimpse I had of, like, this could be a career. This could be something. My aspirations were more about being a writer than anything. I didn't know about being a chef. But I could see somehow this thing colliding with both the ability to be artistic and to cook. I knew how to cook. Mm-hmm. When you work in a diner or a busy barbecue place like I did also, you learn how to move like an athlete, and you can be fast, and you get all that stuff down, but you don't know very much at all about the classics. Mm-hmm. And that began to be shown to me in this restaurant in Key West, and I was like hooked, like falling in love hooked. I was like, okay, I got to start buying books. I got to get some knives, but I was making very little money, so I couldn't race to that. But I was always good at reading, and so I began to read, and tying together the reading with the working, then I got this education. Yeah. I almost went to school, and my chef actually, wrote a letter for me to go to school, the CIA in Hyde Park, New York. But then she changed her mind and said, heck with that, I'll give you a raise, you'll be the sous chef, and I'll teach you everything I learned in the school. Mm-hmm. So that took me to that path. I had this long period of time with Key West, which I think was really a benefit for me, because I got to know my voice in the off-Broadway way, rather than being in the big city and have other people tell me, oh no, you got to do Dover sole with Maine lobster and caviar and truffles. And I was cooking much more in a localized island way down there. And I'd gotten 4 stars to the Miami Herald. I'd gotten my cookbook contract from a division of Random House. Nobody had written a cookbook at all in Florida a chef preceding to me. So things were moving along.
Yeah, and it's my understanding you actually coined the term fusion cuisine.
I did. I was learning how to work with things that were high-end chef food, if you will, but I was always loving the flavors of plantains and mofongo and black beans and the local seafood and the local tropical goods. And then it's like, that movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
You remember how he got obsessed with the shape of that mountain and he was building on mashed potatoes out of it? Something was happening with him where he was transfixed over the idea of this information. I became transfixed over the idea of describing where I wanted to go with my cuisine, and I began to write a paper. And I spent months in between everything else I was doing as a chef in this little restaurant in Key West, writing this thing for myself to kind of figure out where I wanted to go next.
Still ahead, Florida Foodie learns the story behind Norman's rotating menu and the specialties he says will never disappear. Plus, we get our hands on what may be the best brownies in Central Florida. It is all coming up. Welcome back to Florida Foodie. Today, the father of fusion cuisine, Norman Van Aken. Now, he got his start at a kitchen in Key West and worked his way all the way to the top, eventually opening up his own fine dining restaurants here in Dr. Phillips.
You then decided to go to the next level and start opening your own restaurants.
Yeah, I was really fortunate the way life was unfolding for me. People were making way for chefs around the United States to create personalized vision, regional cuisine, but personalized cuisine, and this was an explosion. And we had a good uplift with the economy at that point in time, and I was ready. I took a job on Ocean Drive in a storied hotel there, and I was the chef, and it seemed to people probably that I was the owner, but I wasn't. And it was just, oh my God, I was so fire at this point with, realizing my dreams, what I wanted to do. I'd already written the first book, but I wanted to write another one. And then I had an explosive argument with the owner, who was really, I think, Al Pacino's character model for Tony Montana. I do. It was at South Beach in the early 90s, okay? So that crashed, and I was really down and broke, and I had a contract to write my third book at that time. And so I began to write the book, but then one night I went to dinner with my lawyer friend. We walked into this very popular restaurant in Coral Gables, and a gentleman was sitting there waiting for his table. He said, "Are you Norman Van Aken?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, my name is Teddy Gilman, and if you would like to do your own restaurant, I will be your first investor."
No. Wow.
So
you have Norman's here in Orlando.
Yes, well, just flash forward 20 years now, yeah. Maybe 30.
With a stint at the Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah.
Stint of 16 years.
Yeah. And then also, which I remember, 1921 in Mount Dora for a couple of years.
Absolutely, 3 years, yeah. Yes, and I even did a spin back to Key West for a big project down there. But my whole thing has always been, from the very beginning, from writing the first cookbook, was I felt like it was important to give voice to Florida. I think there are people who do a magnificent job doing things for New York City or Los Angeles, California, they have their chefs and they have their voice for those things, but to find representation for what we have here, which is a great place to cook. In Florida, it's a great place to cook because there are so many different influences, so many different immigration, marriages, things that come together in different ways, the fish, the vegetables, the tubers, it's fantastic, the fruits.
So you opened Norman's in Central Florida on Restaurant Row in February of 2023. How is that different from the place you had at Ritz-Carlton or 1921? If people haven't been to Norman's yet, what can they expect when they walk through the door?
Well, physically, it's a lot different. We have two experiences, if you will. We have the beautiful dining room, although in a much more modern sense, if you will, than the Ritz-Carlton dining room, which I loved. But with the new place, we have a much different feeling. But the thing that's very different is we have this terrace that goes outside. So as the cooler weather comes, we're going to be finding many more guests loving to be out there. And we have 2 private party rooms, which are great, but we are already booking parties for the terrace that seats more like 80 rather than 20. So very different in that way. From a menu standpoint, it is a mixture. And the thing that makes us different is that we have this New World cuisine versus, we're not a steakhouse, we're not a lobster place, we're not we're not an Italian trattoria, we're not those things. Our menu is distinct. As soon as people read that menu, they kind of will go, this is different. I'm interested, But you have to give, you have to make sure you give everybody a chance too. So there is going to be a steak for the people who want a simple steak, and a beautiful piece of fish for people who want a beautiful piece of fish. So we'll change things every 2 weeks. Now, there are dishes that are part of the
staples, the hits.
The hits.
Yes.
The legacy of Norman's is always going to include the pan-cooked filet of Key West yellowtail, which I put on my Instagram thing today because a beautiful version of it came through, and I said, this is the best-selling dish ever in our history. I'm not going to toss this out. They would kill me. The yuca stuffed crispy shrimp, the Brazilian conch chowder, these are things that are going to be there.
So you brought some brownies today, which, as we mentioned, smell amazing right now. Do you love to bake as well, or? I do love to bake, but our pastry chef, Floridian Rivera, she's the one that made the brownies, and I would love to be able to say I baked these for you, but Florian's credit for those. And they are gorgeous. They smell so good. What goes into this? Do you know, or is it all, her secret recipe? We have no secrets. She was my pastry chef in 1921, as a matter of fact. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the family and the band sort of stays together over different things, and so there have been people that, our chef de cuisine, Carlos Robles Molina, he has been with me for 14 years. Wow. So when you have people moving over from the Ritz. Yeah. So when you have people that have been with you for this period of time, you have a almost unspoken ability to communicate. Yes. There's some new people too, and that's part of the excitement. I want to try one of these. Let's go. Go for it.
I want you to try them too. So, ladies first.
So what's next? I mean, it feels like you're always having something down the pipeline. What's next for restaurants, for cookbooks, for your special?
Well, this will be the first time we're going to be going into the full winter season. So what's next in many ways is dealing with what we know will be the major uptick in business and the maturation of our party business. Because, you know, if you've booked parties, and I'm sure you both have, usually you're making your decisions 6 months beforehand.
Yes, at the latest.
And since we didn't know when we get our license and our permitting and all that done.
Oh my God!
I feel like these brownies are going to be
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
There's just a little
holiday party list.
And we were out of hashish, so
I'm giving you 2 napkins because I just touched.
I might like 20 of them.
Put one on my plate.
Oh my God, these are so good.
Yes.
Okay.
This might be the best brownie I've ever had.
I'll tell her. Actually, she'll listen to the show.
There's some crunch on top.
There's crunch on
Yeah,
top.
these are crunchy little chocolate doodads.
And then it's like ooey gooey.
This is amazing. Is that caramel? What? Yeah.
It is finger licking good. Oh my God.
And there's like caramel oozing out of the center of it.
I know.
It appears.
They'll be oozing out of the center of me soon.
Right?
She made another dessert for us this morning that's going to go on the new tasting menu. That was like a churros, you know, carnival food, but done through Glorianne's lens, and similar chocolate and caramel at the same time, which is always a hit. Plus some homemade vanilla ice cream, which I love that warm and then the cold at the same time.
I can't even imagine this with like warm with ice cream.
I don't want to eat this anymore because I want to enjoy this.
I hear you.
My Lord, this is so good.
Thank you.
What is your favorite dessert item on the menu?
I know that the guest's favorite item right now is the flancocho. And that is a hybrid idea that Glorianne has come up with, and they're just raving about it. I'm dining at the restaurant tonight.
Ooh.
So
what will you order?
I don't know. I know the chefs want me to try different things, so that's okay. Yeah.
And when you
That's a
dine
good
there,
job
do you
to
go
have.
back into the kitchen?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
You go incognito? I'm just kidding.
With like a big mustache, yeah.
I don't think they'd be fooled. Oh, chef. Come on now, chef.
What is the most popular item on the menu?
The yellowtail has always been the most popular item on the menu, but you know, it's a thing about our restaurant is that it's fascinating. If I was to sit around a table with the people who have worked with me over the last 25 years, we could have 8 of us there, they would be arguing with each other as to what was the best dish. There could be 8 different choices. So it's not going to be, they're not going to say yellowtail across the board.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to say the yellowtail, somebody else is going to say the rum and pepper painted grouper, somebody else is going to say the barbecued Mongolian veal chop, or they're going to choose appetizers. You know, it's a body of work. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and so there is a body of work. And no, it's not the paella by itself. I mean,
She needs the paella.
I know.
we do paella.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one of the menu categories in the original restaurant was pastas and paellas because we were into it. We had these beautiful wood-burning ovens that we could do that with.
Something about the presentation of paella. I don't know. I see it and I want it.
I don't blame you. I might have to go order it and they're going to go, it's not on the menu.
Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you online?
Well, they can go to www.normansorlando.com. That's the restaurant. And then my own personal, which is a mixture of things about the books and about my upcoming video series, which is my name, Norman Van Aken, www, all that. Yeah.
We really appreciate you coming here and chatting with us today. You have become a household name in Central Florida and across the country, really, but certainly in Orlando. And we appreciate that this is delicious. And I can't wait to have even more in the very near future, beginning with some paella.
Right? Well,
Yes.
it's so nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you both.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we can really sit down and enjoy this.
And thank you for watching Florida Foodie. If you missed any part of this episode, you can watch the entire show right now for free on our new 6 Plus app. That is where you can find all of our amazing podcasts on demand. Just download the app for your smart TV and start streaming.